I didn't even know I'd had the baby. They put me out as soon as I got there.
Welcome, Child Tappers. I'm excited to have Joan Duffin with me today. I wrote about her in my book, Child Tappers. She's someone who's experienced hope, resilience, and post-traumatic growth after life's trials and traumas. I'm excited to hear her story. You know, it's interesting when you go back to post-traumatic growth, the original founders of Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun, they originally started interviewing people that have lived long lives, yet maybe gone through some struggles, and they were trying to find wisdom. And what they came up with was the 5 domains of post-traumatic growth. So I'm excited to hear a little bit about it, Joan. Not only maybe this part of the story in my book, but more about her life. So Joan, thanks for being here again today.
You're welcome.
So I was wanting to talk. Is anything you want to talk to us about your life, but particularly the story that's probably helping a lot more people is your story, how you overcame some of the trials with your children, and particularly when you lost your child. And I was wondering if you can tell us a little bit about that experience and then how that helped you as you continued on after that.
Well, it's hard, as everyone knows. Anything like that is hard. Losing a child is tough, but I got through it okay. My religion helps a lot. I know I spent a lot of time on my knees and in prayer and fasting. I used to fast 3 or 4 days a week, and my kids would say, Mom, but I know that it helped. I know it does.
So, can you tell us a little bit about the story before? So you're pregnant, and then your husband wasn't around. Can you tell me the story about
No,
having to go into the hospital and all that?
yeah, we were up on the third floor, which was hard for me because I was pregnant. I had a son already, and he was just a baby. He wasn't even a year old yet. So I had to have one of the girls go with me, and she would carry him and help me, which I really appreciated it. I could not have gotten through that without the help that I had. Anyway, the landlady took me to the hospital, and I was alone. It was kind of hard because I'd never been alone in a hospital before, but I think the only time I had been in a hospital was when I had my first child. Well, the next morning they came in. I didn't even know I'd had the baby. They put me out as soon as I got there. The next morning, one of the nurses came in and she said, Where would you like us to send the body? And I said, What body? I didn't know that she had not made it. She was born with a double cleft palate because I had stomach measles before I had her when I was carrying her. So that was kind of upsetting. I called my father. He got a little pink casket and had her shipped to Idaho, where I was originally from, where I grew up, and had a little graveside service for her, and I appreciated that. That was great.
So, did you see your
I,
child?
I never did get to see her. My husband at that time came in the next day, and I think they were stringing telephone lines at that time in Montana and Wyoming and Oregon. So we moved around a lot. I think that was probably like our third or fourth move. And that was hard too because I was pregnant at the time. But anyway, it was heartbreaking. But I got through it. I just realized I had to get tough and be strong and just keep going. I had to go forward. I couldn't keep going back. I finally told my husband at that time I was going to go back to Idaho because all this moving was hard, and I had my first son. He was heavy, and I had to have the girls help carry him. So we decided to move back to Idaho, and my father had already gotten a job for my husband at that time. My parents were very, very helpful too. So, and I think that's where I learned a lot of my lessons in life because they were such a good example. Sorry.
No, I appreciate you sharing. That's a tough story. Um, it sounds like things maybe were different back then than now. I mean, I was kind of taken back when they said they didn't let you see the baby.
No, when my husband came at that time, I asked him, I said, "Did you get to see the baby?" He said, "Yes." And I said, "How was she?" And he said that she had a double cleft palate, that she wouldn't live long. I guess she had passed away by then. And they said it would be very costly because at that time we didn't have any insurance, like medical insurance or anything. So, but he said she had black hair. He said she was beautiful, but she had black hair. Anyway, that was about it with her.
So
My
you named her.
Catherine Joan Aldous.
So after that, your family helped out a lot. You said spirituality helped you a lot. Um, then you went on to have more kids. Was it a concern having more
Well,
kids?
the doctor came in that had helped deliver the baby. It was a woman, and I was grateful for that. She said because I had had a placenta separation, that's how I knew I needed to go to the hospital because I was, having a hard time. And she said I'd had a placenta separation. She didn't feel that I would be able to have any more children, but a year to the date, I had my daughter Jill the next year. So that was really a comfort to me. I think I was in the hospital a half hour before she was born. She was very anxious to get here. Anyway, that was a comfort too as well.
And then you went on to have some more children.
Yes, I had, let's see, 3 more, 4 more after.
I'm particularly interested in your story with the last child. So there was complications with that one too.
Yes, I had a hard time carrying her. I think I was 34. The doctor recommended that I do an abortion because I was having a hard time. I had had aneurysm surgery before that, and so I, was having kind of a tough time with that. But I had that in Casper, Wyoming. A doctor by the name of Dr. Sarouche from Iran did the surgery, and he was really patient and good, and that worked out well. But when I had my last child, I had a hard time carrying her. The doctor suggested that I do an abortion, and I said I can't do that.
And then that bird turned out well.
It did, yes. Yeah, she was born, and well, she was born at home because we didn't have any insurance, and I, couldn't go to the hospital. It was too pricey at that time. She was born at home, and it was nice. The kids were all excited, except I had 2 boys. They came in and they said, "Oh, we want a little boy." I said, "But you're going to love this little girl." And they did, and they have.
That's great. So I appreciate you telling us that story. You've been around a while with times where there wasn't barely phone lines. As you were saying, your husband was putting in phone lines, and medical insurance was difficult to have. So you were raised around the time of the Depression.
Yes, I was born in 1939, and I think it was, 1941, 42 was 43 when they had all the problems. I remember my mother going to the store, and they would give her a book with stamps in it, and she would use so many each go. But we didn't very often shop at a grocery store because we raised everything on the farm. We
Oh,
had cows and pig,
so was
and
that
we,
rationing? Was that rationing that she was getting
yes,
stamps for?
yes, they got
So it was
so
like,
many.
so it was during the war.
Um, I believe it was. Yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
I know it was. Yeah, it was a hard time. I was still a little girl, so I didn't really understand it all. But I do remember her taking us to the grocery store. I had a twin brother, and she would tear out so many stamps because they would just give us so many.
Gotcha. So you've gone through a lot of different struggles in your life, seen a lot of things, had some positive things happening. Um, what is some advice that you might give to other people that have gone through struggles?
I think it's hard to lose a child. We think that we should die before they do. Of course, they're always different, but there's always hope. If you can cling on to hope and faith and charity and love, I think you can get through it. I know that I have. My children have been a great strength to me too. They've been very helpful and give me a lot of strength. We just don't get discouraged and don't give up. When you have trials, just keep going because it's worth it. Sorry.
So there's some different steps we see in post-traumatic growth. Many people find when they go through some trials in life that they find a stronger connection, spiritual connection to other things. Um, and then others will say that they, after going through those trials, realize that they're stronger than they thought they were.
That's right. And even when you're going through them, you're a lot stronger than what you think you are. But because you're going through all this, you don't really realize it at the time. So anybody that's having struggles or trials, hang in there because it's worth it.
Well, do you have any other tips or ideas you might want to share with the listeners?
Oh, I can't think of any right now. I want to mention one thing though. Every time I had a trial or something, my mother was always there with me to help and support. And I will, be ever grateful to her for her sweet spirit and her coming to help. And my kids loved having her. As they got older, she'd always bring goodies and stuff, and that always helped lift up our spirits.
If you don't mind, I'd like to just talk a little bit that you haven't had everything go well in your life. Besides this, you've had whether that's financial issues, troubles, or marriage issues. You've gone through some hard things. What was the number one thing that's helped you through all that?
I get a lot of support from friends, mostly from family. And because of the way I was raised, I always turned to my religion because I felt like that helped me probably just as much or more than anything. I
Well,
spent a
that's
lot of time on my knees, and it wasn't easy, but it was worth it. We can't just take it for granted that things are going to turn out okay. Because, you have to work at it, you have to be diligent, and just keep struggling no matter how hard it is.
well, another area of post-traumatic growth that people will identify after they've gone through some trials is that they were able to rely on family or friends, that people stepped up to help them. And so you're saying you've had a lot of friends and family that stepped
Yes,
up.
I have. My family's been amazing, and their spouses and their children have been great. I don't know that I could have gotten through without family. And when the doctor told me in Helena, Montana, that I probably wouldn't have any more children, that was really discouraging. And I thought, oh no. But I thought, I'm not going to give up. I just kept trying, and I had 4 more. So that was
Yeah.
awesome. I think there's a lot of strength that comes through families. Family ties are very important.
Well, I know you also went through another struggle later in life when you lost another child.
It was hard. I think, well, the first one was a baby. After you carry a baby, it's hard when you lose it. You're like, oh my goodness, could I have done something different? But there wasn't I could have done because back then they didn't have ultrasounds and all this other stuff that they do. my daughter that passed away in 2019. That was hard too.
Well, you've had some tough times, and I do see that your connection with family is pretty strong. And so I appreciate what you do and what you teach to the younger generations about trials and frugality and how to overcome these things, because your experience that you've gone through those trials, I can tell you've learned a lot from them, and you can help others with your stories.
I think that's why we have our trials, is to learn and to grow.
Yeah.
They're not easy, but we get through them, and there's ways that we can get through. And there's a lot of help. I went for counseling too.
So you had some counseling that also helped you get through some of this?
Yes, it did. It helped a lot. You feel like, when you feel like everything's lost, down, somebody comes along and they'll say, well, I know somebody you can talk to.
Well, I'm a big supporter of counseling for sure, and I do appreciate getting to know you and all these years and being part of my life. So I appreciate you sharing this with other people, just to get a glimpse of some of the things that you've learned.
I would just say to everybody out there that's having struggles, don't give up. I would suggest you get counseling if you're having struggles. Be sure and say your prayers every day, because Heavenly Father knows you, the Savior knows you, and they will help you get through it.
Well, Joan, thanks so much for sharing with us. I know it's going to help a lot of people. Um, your strength is awesome, and I know it's great for others that you encounter, and I look forward to sharing this with other people. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. It's nice to be on so I could share my story. They can find the help and assistance that they need, because it's worth it. It's so worth it. Don't ever give up. Don't ever give in. Thank you, Hugh.
Perfect. Thanks, Joan.